Alrighty then. Howdy folks, I'm OK Fixer and this is part 2 of the engine Will It Run? A couple of things I got in the mail today. I got those. Just don't want to come out, do they? Oh, got a little fold action going on there. There's our new studs right there. These were close to 50 bucks. So it is what it is. What are you going to do? These oil seals are new. I bought 2 sets of them because I know better, and they come with the little washers and stuff. But they're the 8 to 10 millimeter. Okay, so we can put these together now and put our oil cooler on. There's our cooler. We'll put those right there. I'm just going to use the seals. I'm not going to use the washers they gave me because I have washers. And again, there's a washer stuck in there. Be about right. A little flashing right there in the light. Peel that out of there. So we have a 10 millimeter side and an 8 millimeter side, and it's Captain Obvious. But this allows me to mount my oil cooler on a dual relief case that was either a dual relief case that was meant for doghouse or a what do they call that? I'm losing my mind. A case that is universal. So, got those through there. Let's see if we can't get that threaded on there one way or another. I know this is probably tearfully boring, so I probably ought to speed this up. And stop the video. And just start it when I have this thing all together. But for those people who want to know, I will gladly oblige. Get that started on there. There we go. Now, if you look in the back here, I have a 8 millimeter stud instead of a 6 millimeter stud. So there you go. Well, let's put this together. I'll answer my phone and I'll put you on pause for just a second. I am a big believer in buying, doubling up on stuff. So when especially when they were as cheap and the shipping was nothing more, spark plugs and stuff like that, I did. And make sure you take your tip off the end there and check your gaps. Now, I think these are probably gapped at the factory, and you can look at it. It's got a nice square gap on it, and it's not smashed or anything. So we're going to put our spark plugs in, our tin on, our oil sender, and this little rubber hoodus I wanted to show you also. there's a little rubber piece where your crankcase breather pipe goes down through. A lot of people don't have that. It's a little piece of rubber right there. That needs to go in there too. Cover up all those holes. Don't let any holes be through your tin, because the heat will come up through there and get recycled back up into your engine. You don't want that. Alright, we got our intake on. It was pretty straightforward. I usually spray my gaskets with a little bit of that copper stuff, and when I put my gasket for my intake on, I have the seam facing down. So I do that. We are going to take our distributor out. Next thing that's going to go on is a fan shroud, so we'll do that. Couple of things I wanted to show you. We have our fan shroud on and tightened to the base of the generator stand. This carburetor here is really close to the fan shroud, about 1/8 of an inch. And the accelerator pump, and if you can see this back here, it reaches its full travel, but it does so making contact with this. And that's wrong. So that's the wrong carburetor for this car. So I'm going to rebuild my original carburetor. I have 2 or 3 of them actually, and put the correct carburetor on it, because that's the wrong carburetor for the car. And there's a reason why stuff like that. Yeah, there you go. There's your reason. It's wrong. That belongs on a dual port engine, where it probably is set off a little bit farther. Anyways, okay, so we're going to fix that after we make the engine run. A couple of things I wanted to show you. Again, you've seen this before. Your thermostat here. Put your thermostat back on, okay? You have it bolted to this little apparatus here, and what you want to do is you pull it down to its the full stroke of the deal there, of the bracket in the nut, and then you tighten that nut up. There you go. And when the heat comes through underneath here, it'll open it up, and it'll allow the flaps to open. And you want to make sure they don't bind. And there you go. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to put our heat exchangers on there and our exhaust, and tighten our gland nut. And we would probably be a good idea to take the pulley off. I have another pulley my brother sent me, and I'm going to take that one off there. We'll tuck the distributor cap up out of the way, finish putting our tin on, and then fuel pump, and we should be able to put it in the car then. All of your 8mm bolts, or 8mm studs, get 14 pounds, except for the flywheel, and it gets 18. Now is the time to check things, to make sure that things aren't wrong. Heat box is operating. No drag there. Okay. We checked our fan flaps and made sure they're okay. Spin your fan and make sure it's not clunking on anything. Okay. All your nuts and bolts right. Are your spark plugs in the right location? You're going to want to do things like take off your flywheel lock before you put it on. I've done all this stuff before, and wonder why I can't get the engine in while the flywheel lock's on. Geez, why can't I get the engine in? Well, my clutch plug is still in, okay? These things you all need to check. I see I'm missing one thing. There's a big hole here, and I took that stud out. I'm going to need to put that in there. So you need to go around and check everything. You got all your nuts and bolts tight? Are your valves set right? Are you sure they're set right? Is the key missing from your generator? I had mine go missing during this operation. Where the key is, I'll never know. I don't know. Try to find a metric key somewhere. Yeah, good luck. Does your breastplate fit? the preheat chambers there, the preheat boxes. Does it fit there? So when you go to put this in there and wrestle it in there, you don't have to crawl underneath and adjust them. Are your hen's teeth there? Yes, and that's 67 only. So do you have enough clearance? That's what I wanted to show you also, is the clearance between the fan shroud and the carburetor become increasingly more. What I did is I loosened these up, and then I bolted this down to the muffler, and it pulled it over into the right area, and then I seated these again. And so now I have 3/16 of an inch. So yes, this carburetor does work on this car. It'd have to work on this car because it's the smaller. Yeah, okay. Do you have your fuel pump in? Did you check your rod? Is it sealed up? Is the rod running up and down the right way? Are we on TDC? Yes. Is that in there right? The distributor drive? Yeah. Did you put something like the oil pressure switch in there? Yeah. Okay. All these things you got to check on this engine, because getting it in the car and then you've got some kind of little situation. Yeah, boy, you can easily end up with problems. Another big deal I see a lot of crazy gesticulation with the distributor. Wee, while you're trying to start it. Set it at 0 and you're done. Why would you want to do that? I don't get it. Another thing, don't forget your oil. Yes, I've done that before, being in the car and cranking it, and it's like, I didn't put any oil in it. So all these things you must think about before you go put the power egg back in. So we're pretty good. I've got the distributor cap kind of strapped up there so it's not going to be in the way. I've got the pulley off the so it's not going to rub up on my rubber little gizmo there. So I'm kind of glad I took that off there, because the keyway went missing, or it wasn't there. I don't know. I couldn't find it. Swept the floor and everything, so it's highly possible I went and put that thing together without a key in there. Ooh, savage. Don't worry about that. It only cools the engine. Okay, so we're going to get this on the floor jack, and I'm doing a floor jack on this because it allows me a little bit more manipulation when the car is up like this. I'm older and I don't like squeezing my fat body underneath the car, because it doesn't happen anymore. So I like to have it up, and when you have it up like this, of course, the shaft out of the transmission is in the same position. It's not like this. So if you're going on a flat surface like this cart, you have your clutch like this, and then you have your transmission shaft like this, and it doesn't work. But if you have a floor jack in the center there, it's much easier to raise it a little bit. So we're going to use a floor jack. So there's not a lot of room back there, so I put my flywheel lock on there. To pound it in there. You probably shouldn't pound it anyways. It should be pressed or pulled in and out. So. Stud for the top of the stud. It's not a stud. It's the opposite of a stud, whatever that is. So it's a little nut that presses in there. I believe that there should be a method for everything, and this is my method. So I mean, you can use it if you want to. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. But I'm a believer in working smart and not hard. I've got another jack stand up underneath just in case. And I want to go forward with this. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, you've got your jack wrong. Well, that's fine. But you can move it. Okay. You're a little bit tight here. come in just a tick more. Sweep your floor before you do this because you're going to catch in all kinds of stuff. Now, what you can do is sit your sitting on that swivel on your jack. You can just move your jack over like this. Just like that. Centered up here. There she is. I should go a little bit more. See, a lot of you guys, it's easy to do this. But I've been dealing with torn rotators for 10 years that I have not been able to get fixed due to my want or my, I should say, my liking to have a roof over my house, over my head. So, some of you guys, you know, it's easy for you to do this stuff, and that's great. But man, for me, it is every day is a new adventure in pain, especially if you're trying to lift something or move something. So hopefully one day I'll get that fixed. But my range of motion and my ability to lift anything, you really have to work out the angles of attack and geometry if you're going to do any of this, and you have to work smart. You can't work hard, because if you work hard, then you won't be able to pay your bills. So that's what I'm dealing with. Let's get that wheel back on there. She is. There. All right. There. Let's have a look at our engine again. Make sure we're not going to smash anything. letting her down. That's her. Come over a little more. Like I said, you know, wrestling things around, it's just not an option for me. You have to use your wits to get the angles right, just to get something moved. There she goes. Now I've got about 4 or 5 inches there, so I'll be all right. Okay, leave that back underneath there for a little support. That's how I get the engine in and out. So, I mean, at least slipped up underneath there, and then of course the rest of it's kind of a no-brainer. It's a wrestle, kind of a deal, a wrestle kind of a thing. Get things lined up, but it's real important to have the things I talked about before you go and put your engine in there, like the plug out of the clutch and like the flywheel lock off and the little bolt that, you know, you go to put the bolt up in there and it's like, where is it? So check things over before you do it. Okay, I don't necessarily need one, but I got one. There's a filter there, and it's back there if you can see it. It's a metal filter, and if you ever want to block off your hose, your original hose, this is all for original stuff. Use a pencil, a sharpened pencil. It doesn't need to be really sharp, but you can wedge it in there, and it works really well. 10 millimeter headed 6 millimeter bolt is too small and it'll leak, but if you can wedge a pencil in there, it works really well. Also, I've done away with all my screw clamps. My fuel system is rock solid Aces, fuel pump, carburetor, all the way down. So I put pinch clamps on there. They're much nicer. And let's see here if I can show you exactly how a pinch clamp works. They go on the hose as such, and they have this little tool right here, and you get up in there and you give it a squeeze and it pinches it. And this is what the car originally had. This and assortment of keys was $21 on Amazon. Beautiful thing right there. Okay, let's put the engine in. Generally I get it to about this spot, and then I start feeding the throttle cable through and make sure we get that in there and you can look at it. Remember, as you're jacking it up, it's also coming back some, so you have to kind of push it forward and then work the jack with your foot, like so. Alright, I left the distributor loose so I could wildly gesticulate it like this when I'm starting it, and then it'll start. No. I have my ignition on, okay, and I have it on TDC. Watch the meter. You can do this with a light or a meter. Oh, I gotta touch the pro. Oh, oh. There she is right there. Now we'll back her off of TDC. Bring it back up. She's a little behind. Back it. Still a little behind. What happened? Oh. Back it up. There she is right there. Just as the mark comes up TDC, we're a little, oops, don't blow a fuse. Back that down just a little bit. That's it right there. Perfect. Right on the money. You can do that with the light also. Then tighten this down. Tighten your clamp down. Oh, that's a 10 millimeter and I've got an 8. How does that not surprise me? Okay. There you go. Uh-oh, I turned it. We'll have to check our work. Wow, I really had that loose, didn't I? Back it up. Ground. And, yeah. Nope. That should do it. Still not there. A little bit too much. Perfect. Maybe just a little too much. Well, let's tighten it up and see what we get. I moved it again, shit. Try that. See what you got there. Good right there, I think. Now we're a little behind. Damn it, Jim. Let's see here. Did you say behind? Yes, that means it's got to go this way. I didn't mean this to take this long. This doesn't take this long. Oh, now we're way off. Yeah, now we're way off. Start over. We got it really close, really good. But what I'm saying is, if you have a standard engine, there's no reason to leave this loose. Just set your timing and yeah, then you're done. I put 3 quarts in this and it's still a little low. So it's only supposed to hold 2.5 or 5 pints. But the engine is kind of like this. So also the oil cooler is empty. So yeah, we're going to start it on that. I think it'll be okay. I'm going to crank till I get oil pressure, pull the distributor. I have not got my gas hooked up to it, and there's no gas in the carburetor. so there's no chance of it starting anyways. I'm just going to put some gas in the carburetor float bowl and see if it runs, and then I can hook up all the other stuff to it. The factory belt, the hassle I had before works fine now. The factory belt, Brother Brian had given me a new, yeah, but I think it's the relation of the case. So yeah, the old case anyways. This one we have 2 lights, so we're going to crank until the oil light goes out. Out of gas. Well, I had some problems with my ignition. The ignition switch that I fixed was giving me fits, and so I cranked and I cranked and I cranked, and it didn't. The oil light didn't go away, and I think I can feel the back of my switch here, and it's hot. So yeah, I fixed it for a little while. So yeah, what are you gonna do? I guess what I'll have to do is I'll have to order another one. I'll have to order another. Fill up that flow bowl. Have to order another ignition switch. I've seen somewhere where you could buy them, so I'll order one. That's a lot of gas in there. Let's see if she'll start again. I mixed up some gas, 40 to 1, or 40 to 1. Some gas and some 2-stroke. So let's see here. Make sure that light's going to go out. Out of gas. Okay, there you are. It runs. Doesn't knock too bad. We can put all our stuff on there now that I've did the little test drive with Toby, and we do have oil pressure. You know, it's Brian says this engine has 200,000 miles on it. The lower end, I don't know. Maybe it does. Doesn't knock, doesn't smoke. So I'm happy, and we'll put everything together and dial it all in and get it running. And there you go. She runs. Of course it runs. Okay. Thanks for wrenching with me. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. I'll get that engine all put together. I think I'm going to order some seat covers next. So all I got to do is seats, running boards, bumpers, paint the wheels, probably 10,000 more things. So yeah, we'll be driving this spring. All right, see you guys later.